Glenn Crowther to have their videos on?
Yes, please. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Regional Transport Committee meeting for Friday, the 8th of May, 2020. I would like to particularly welcome the mayors who have joined us today, councillors, advisors and staff to the Regional Transport Committee, and a special welcome to the public today and people listening, dare I say, around the world to this Regional Council meeting. And another warm welcome, of course, to the media who have indicated that they're showing considerable interest in this meeting today and are with us. So if I can just remind you, as the team leader governance just did, could you please indicate electronically by raising your hand when you want to speak, and ensuring that you lower your hand after you have spoken. So for the benefit of the public, this is a standing committee and it has representatives from across the Bay of Plenty, including external members and external advisors. The key individuals participating today, for the information of the public, are myself from Regional Council and the Deputy Chairperson, Councillor Jane Neves. From Kawerau District Council, we have Mayor Malcolm Campbell. The Opotiki District Council, Her Worship Lynn Riestra. The Rotorua Lakes Council, we have Deputy Mayor Dave Donaldson. Tauranga City Council, we have His Worship the Mayor. Western Bay of Plenty District Council, we have His Worship the Mayor. And the Whakatane District Council, we have Her Worship the Mayor. And we have another voting member of that committee, an external member from the New Zealand Transport Agency, Steve Mutton. Moving on, we have apologies from Her Worship the Mayor of Rotorua, Mayor Chadwick, and Chairman Leader. I'm happy to move, and Councillor Neves, are you happy to second that? I will take it that everyone is in support of that resolution. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I can indicate there is no public forum today. I have not been approached with regards to accepting any late items, but I'm happy to take anything here at this point in time if there's anyone who wishes to raise a late item. There being none, moving on. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? I'll assume that there are none, and if we can just move on to the previous minutes, and someone with a reasonably good memory can recall the meeting of the 21st of February 2020. I'll move those as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Mayor Webber, would you be happy to second that?
More than happy, thank you.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against,
Aye.
carried. Those minutes on page 13. Are there any matters arising, anybody from those minutes? Going through page 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and ending on page 21. Are there any matters arising from those minutes? I don't believe there are, so we will move on. In terms of a chair's report, I just have a few words I'd like to say verbally, and in doing so, I'll state that the challenges we face in recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic are unprecedented in recent history, as we all know. However, planning for regional recovery brings with it significant opportunities for our region. We can be proactive to ensure we can fully support and make the most of the opportunities presented. Our growing region is well placed to make significant gains and see considerable transport projects realised, something that without the pandemic may not have been conceivable in the short term. We can expedite the recovery by working collaboratively with each other and with central government. A significant component of today's agenda, as we all know, is the Bay of Plenty Transport Economic Stimulus Package. This has been developed as a local authority transport sector action plan. The package has been a collaborative exercise, and I stress collaborative, undertaken by the Bay of Plenty Regional Advisory Group, and includes a total transport investment of $755 million. It comprises transport projects and programs identified by local authorities throughout the region that will not only provide immediate and substantial economic stimulus, but also support central government's longer term objectives for the land transport system. We have an opportunity today, colleagues, to support a variation to the Regional Land Transport Plan, commonly referred to as the RLTP, and include this package and its proposals into that RLTP. That said, the RLTP remains fundamental to successful funding and delivery. Therefore, it's important for us not to lose focus on the statutory processes for developing and endorsing the final product. The current LTP, as we know, provides a strong basis for this process, and the RLTP development paper included in the agenda gives members an opportunity to share your thoughts on particular drivers we would like to see emphasised in the next plan. Central government direction provides a number of pointers we may need to explore further. For example, mode-neutral planning and the development of a multimodal transport system, and how we address climate change and the need to reduce transport emissions. And of course, this thinking must be done through a lens of responding to and adapting to the immediate impacts of COVID-19. It is also pleasing to see the government's strong commitment to road safety and the implementation of the Road to Zero strategy. A part of this is the Tackling Unsafe Speeds program, which includes a proposal for each local authority to contribute to a regional speed management plan, and to be coordinated and consulted on by the regional transport committees. Colleagues, we are still waiting to see what this proposal will look like in practice, but I can assure you we will all approach the task in the same collaborative manner as we do now in developing the Regional Land Transport Plan. At the conclusion of the meeting today, we will be joined by the Minister of Transport, Minister Twyford, who will be joining us from 1 o'clock to 1:45 from his office in Parliament. This provides an opportunity for us as a group to further build our rapport with the Minister, confirm our alignment with central government direction, and push our case for stimulus funding. And I finally must say I look forward to undertaking this journey with you and seizing the opportunity to make a difference for our region during these challenging, ultra-extraordinary times. I would formally move that the meeting receive this Chairman's verbal update. Mayor Powell, are you happy to second that? It's been moved and seconded. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Can I take everyone now to page...
Sorry, Mayor, sorry, Chair.
Yes.
I did have my hand up using the technology.
I've got 1,000 people I'm needing to carry here. Fire ahead.
I fully support what you have just articulated. Yes. This is extraordinary times. If you look at the list of projects we have in front of us, and the significant look at modal shift and public transport in the body of this, I wonder if, given what's ahead of us now, we should rethink whether we need 2 transport committees, this one plus the public transport committee, because they're so intertwined. Would we be not better to look to pulling them back together as one, because there's a clear message about the significant shift in modal shift and public transport that I think this has to stay on the agenda for this committee. Just my view, but I fully support your suggestions.
Okay, and Mayor, whether we take on board your comments, and may I suggest we pick them up outside of this meeting and progress them as you would so wish, and have that discussion.
I am more than happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, that's been moved and seconded. We now move on, folks, to page 25 of the agenda, and it's a presentation from Steve Mutton, who is the new Director of Regional Relationships for NZTA. A number of the mayors would have already met this gentleman. Steve, welcome. Good to have you with us. You're a key part of this committee, and of course, even a voting member. So welcome. So I was going to say the floor is yours, but the camera is yours. So welcome, and take as long as you like on this key issue. It's an excellent report.
Thank you, Chair, and tēnā koutou, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Steve Mutton, the Director of Regional Relationships for the Upper North Island. And as you know, I'm the new to the region, replacing Ross Ianson as the DRR for the Bay of Plenty region. I've just got a presentation here I'd like to run through. The purpose of the report is to update you on Waka Kotahi's current national and regional initiatives. So if I just share my screen.
Mayor Webber, can you take your hand down for us, please?
Chair, can I just confirm that you can see the presentation?
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Waka Kotahi is here to work with you and to help navigate through this new landscape that we find ourselves in with COVID-19. It certainly is a different landscape than we're used to. Like ourselves, I know that you're facing significant financial constraints in the coming year, and the top priority for us has to be to get on with projects that will help create jobs and inject cash into our local economy. But we acknowledge that local government is looking to us for greater financial assistance, particularly in the areas of public transport, the road to safety initiatives, and for help in making better application process simpler. At Waka Kotahi, we cannot provide everything being sought by the sector, but we are doing things to make it easier to deliver better outcomes for our communities. The one thing we know is that there is likely to be a change to the draft GPS, the 2021 GPS, because of the impacts of COVID-19, and also the government's economic stimulus package will impact on the Transport Agency's investments. So we want to make things simpler where we can and ensure we're not placing any greater strain on your time and your resources, because I know it's a busy time for everyone. So in the coming weeks, we will keep developing the RLTP guidance to share with you. And the focus is really on ensuring there's a consistent approach to the RLTP development across the nation. We're proposing to set the funding assistance rate, the FARS, for the 2021-24 NLTP by the end of June. And we want to review the proposed changes with the investment decision-making framework review to make it easier for the sector over the next year. But we'll be considering whether there's anything we can do to change any of our existing policies, our processes, our practices that will help you and make it easier for you. And this work's already underway and we'll keep you updated as it progresses. We're also looking into what possibilities there are for us to consider any changes in our levels of funding. However, I just want to note that we're also facing a significant drop in funding as a result of COVID, with the lower fuel prices, the less vehicles on our roads, so this may not be possible for us. The most important thing is that we will only communicate the guidance that we know will not change, and will be very clear and open when we can. As part of the New Zealand Upgrade Programme, the government's allocated a further 300 million for the regional investment opportunities, and 88, or just over 88 million of that funding was allocated for 13 state highway projects. And these projects will address key changes our state highways face and will also support regional economic development. So I'm really pleased to say that in the Bay of Plenty, 14 million has been allocated for safety improvements along State Highway 5 from Turikinga through to Ngangataha, and an upgrade of the State Highway 36, State Highway 5 roundabout. So this investment, which is absolutely awesome, will improve safety and reduce congestion at the roundabout, which I know happens on a regular basis. And the program of work also includes standard safety improvements along about approximately 8.1 kilometres of State Highway 5. So work's now underway and we expect to have construction start later this year, and the project team will keep the community informed as information becomes available. So Arataki is the Transport Agency's 10-year view, and it was released for feedback in December, and it was very well received by the sector. And if you haven't had a chance to read the Bay of Plenty Arataki document, I really encourage you to do so. It's a fabulous way of understanding the opportunities and challenges that we face together in the region. So we received great feedback, which resulted in a series of amendments, and we've made some of those adjustments which better reflects the local issues, better reflects the reality for the communities. It reflects some of the legislative changes we've seen, such as the Zero Carbon Act, and also to reflect particularly the new programs like the New Zealand Upgrade Programme. The ones that we've just released back on our website does recognise the significant potential impact of COVID, but it doesn't consider in detail at this stage, and we're looking to make that change as quickly as we can. And it doesn't also include some of the details around economic stimulus packages to support businesses and communities post-lockdown. So that will form part of our version 2, which, as I say, we're developing quite quickly. So as I say, if you hadn't had a chance to look at these, please do. Just Google NZTA Arataki and the documents will come up, and you can go down and pick the Bay of Plenty region document. That is a very good document. The government policy statement, which sets out the government's strategic direction for the land transport system over the next 10 years, and it's updated every 3 years. It's just finishing up the consultation period on Monday. So the draft GPS continues the strategic direction of the GPS 2018, but provides stronger guidance on what government's seeking from our land transport investments. And we really encourage you to have a look at that document in detail. And I know there is a paper later on that we'll be discussing around this. So Waka Kotahi, we're taking the time now to reflect and consider this draft document to ensure that our approach to prioritisation aligns with the direction that the government has signalled. The investment decision-making framework sets out how we develop and assess and prioritise funding transport investment proposals, and we've completed a review of this document and a draft report has been published. Consultation on the draft investment prioritisation method has been deferred, as we've heard that from you that there's a lot happening within the regions at the moment. So we want to defer that, but also as the economic recovery and the stimulus of the economy will need to be considered in the context of prioritising the next MLTP. So we have deferred that to a later date. The RLTP, and we acknowledge the challenges and the uncertainty that COVID-19 has created around the development of the RLTP and also your council's long-term plans. So as mentioned, we want to make it easier for you during this time, and we're looking at how we can simplify information requirements and processes and provide you with more support around this. So we're releasing additional guidance to help with the development of the RLTPs, and we want to work to keep change to an absolute minimum. As I said earlier, our teams are here to help you develop your RLTPs and form the LTPs, and we'll keep you updated on new information as you complete the development of the RLTP front ends by the end of June of this year. The Transport Agency Investment Proposal, which is the document that sets out what Waka Kotahi's investment is in the region. So we continue to develop that for the 21-24 investment proposal. And we're working through preparing the content for the regional summaries, which will then feed into the tape and also into our State Highway Asset Management Plan. We're also reviewing the regional state highway improvement programs and checking alignment with national programs, which there are a number of them. There's the Road to Zero, there's the Resilience Program, there's the Modal Shift, just to name a few. And from that, we'll develop a list of nationally delivered programs, which will help inform the RLTPs. And once again, we'll share this with you as soon as we have it ready. So the Road to Zero is the government's new road safety strategy for 2020 to 2030, and it was launched before Christmas. It's a fantastic strategy. It's a sector-wide plan to reduce deaths and serious injuries on our roads, cycleways and footpaths, and looking for a 40% reduction over the next 10 years. So it adopts a Vision Zero, a New Zealand where no one is killed or seriously injured in road crashes, and where no deaths or serious injury while travelling on our roads is acceptable. And the strategy looks to deliver the ultimate vision of zero deaths and serious injuries into the future, and also sets out our strategy to achieve that 40% DSI reduction by 2030. So there's 5 areas that we're focusing on: infrastructure improvements and speed management, vehicle safety, work-related road safety, road user choices, and system management. And we at Waka Kotahi have a very clear role to play in this, and we'll work with you to support you with these plans and strategies. So the action plan came out with the strategy. It's the very first Road to Zero action plan, and it sets out 15 areas for action from 2020 to 2022, and the 15 are there in front of you. So we encourage you to take time to read the strategy, familiarise yourself with the action plan to ensure that we have really meaningful discussions as we work together to reduce harm on our transport system. This is such an important piece of work. As the Chair mentioned earlier, in November, the government announced its Tackling Unsafe Speeds package, which changes how we carry out speed management and requires RCAs to adopt safer speed limits around schools. So the RTC will be responsible for coordinating and supporting consultation on speed management plans at a regional level every 3 years, at the same time as the RLTPs are prepared. And Wakatahi will work with you all and ourselves through this process. There's also a proposal that increases the number of safety cameras on the network and also the transfer of ownership and operation of these safety cameras from the New Zealand Police to Waka Kotahi. So MOT are consulting with the sector to work through the details. Consultation on the rule change is planned for the second quarter of 2020, with the rule changes finalised by the end of this year. Accessible Streets is a package of rule changes that has come out as well. It tends to make our footpaths, cycle lanes, shared paths safer and more accessible for everyone. It's also to respond to the ever-increasing use of micro-mobility devices on our streets and footpaths. It's created a national framework for local councils to make changes to suit their local conditions. And it's also making travelling by bus and active transport modes safer and more efficient, and support the creation of a much livable and vibrant towns and cities, which is what we're working to. So as I say, a national framework has been developed that clarifies how and where vehicles and devices can be used, while allowing you to make changes to suit the local conditions. So please have a look at that, or contact me if you need more information around that. Another exciting pilot that we've just launched on the 3rd of April was Innovating Streets for People Pilot Fund. This is more than $7 million to help create more people-friendly spaces in our towns and cities. The fund's an opportunity to pilot changes that make our streets safer and more livable through tactical urbanism. The pilot fund will provide councils with a 90% FAR for tactical urbanism projects, as well as capability building. So as we've said, that COVID-19 has had a significant impact on our transport system, and this program is an opportunity to adapt streets to better support active and safe transport needs while following official advice about people movement. So it's basically about reconsidering how we allocate street space, and it's a relevant time for us to help our communities reimagine the public space. So there's 2 application rounds. One has already closed. The second round opens on the 8th of June and closes on the 3rd of July. So it's a good fund to access to try and change some of our street spaces. Another safety program we've implemented recently is the Safe Vehicles program, which is a national advertising campaign raising awareness of vehicle safety ratings and the role that vehicles play in keeping people safe in a crash. And it's really exciting to see that this campaign has seen safety rating searches increase up to 6,000 searches per hour, increasing from less than 100 per hour since the campaign launch. So this is really exciting, where it drives consumers to the Right Car website to look at the safety ratings of their vehicles. And lastly, Chair, just a couple of photos here for the RTC. With our projects, we're currently working under level 3 protocols, which means we had to adhere to a number of critical distancing and safety and wellbeing protocols and procedures. This does have a productivity impact on our work sites, but we're working through that at the moment to understand what that productivity reduction means for our programs and budgets. But this photo here is State Highway 2, Waihita Amakara project, $101 million safety improvement project being constructed in 10 sections. There's 2 main activity sites underway, one north and south of Katikati. This is a photo of just putting some drainage in. It's one thing that our community does not see is the amount of work that goes underneath the pavement surfaces, which is where a lot of the cost actually lies. The second photo here is the Baylink to Bayfair project, so Bay Park to Bayfair link. And we've confirmed the inclusion of an underpass for pedestrians and cyclists as part of the Baylink project. This is a significant piece of work, an exciting piece of work for the community, which actually requires an additional span to the flyover. So there is a large cost associated with this, and the programs are currently being considered to see when the completion date will be for this. So Chair, that's the end of the presentation. I'll hand it back to you. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve, an excellent report. Now, I imagine there'll be a number of people that would like to put their hands up, and starting with Councillor Nees.
Thank you very much, Steve. I was reading in your report on page 31 of our agenda that Waka Kotahi had put a list of projects through to the Crown Infrastructure Partners for possible consideration. And my question is, are you able to share which ones of those are in the Bay of Plenty region? And are they already in our regional land transport program, or should they be considered for adding into our list as we are with our economic stimulus package?
Yes, thank you for that question. So yes, we have submitted a paper to CIP, as I guess a lot of other councils and a lot of key infrastructure providers. So our list is totally in alignment with the government policy statements and our NLTP, and we have put projects forward that are already within the NLTP lists. So we're still waiting to hear back, like everyone else, on what the decision is. I understand that the pack is being coordinated and will be supplied through to the Minister, and the Minister in due time will make the decision around what projects will be funded through that stimulus package.
Sorry, could I just have a little bit of clarification? When you say they're already in the NLTP lists, are you talking about the current NLTP and therefore they're in our current RLTP?
Yes, that's correct. So these projects need to be construction ready. So we have listed the projects which are ready to go.
Okay, His Worship the Mayor, Mayor Webber, followed by Deputy Mayor Donaldson. Your Worship.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and I don't expect them to be answered right now, but you may need to. The zero deaths initiative is admirable, but once you get past the narrative, I would really appreciate how you expect to achieve that. What are the measures? And then secondly, but most importantly, what is the cost of doing this? Because I think you might find it'll be eye-watering. And given we're seem to be in an ever-decreasing funding line going forward, how do we achieve this plus everything else? So don't expect an answer now, but appreciate it. The other issue I've got is on page 36, 37, and I don't want to be critical being a recent beneficiary of money from heaven for the Tauranga Northern Link. But, you know, what is the status with that? Is it going out to tender as per? So I move on to a slightly different subject. Looking forward, I wonder whether we could get a table of all the projects that we have in a traffic light system as to, is it still within scope? Is it still on time? And is it still in budget? And what do we need to do to get it back into plan? Because we attend these meetings, and I accept I've been missing in action for 3 years, but the narrative's great. But the bit we've been missing all the way through is the funding line. So why do we go to all this effort if there is no funding? So I just wonder whether we can get that up front, because if there is no funding line for it, let's not put any effort into doing the engineering analysis and all of that. So a couple of comments more than questions, but I would like the answers sometime soon. So before we go through our LTP with a whole lot of work where there is no funding ever going to happen, so that work will have been done for naught.
Yeah, thank you for those questions through the chair. I'll just comment that the GPS is very focused on safety, so therefore the government is investing a large amount of money into achieving the Road to Zero strategy. But I'll certainly send a note through to you through the chair with some of those numbers and what the measures are. So the measures have been developed as part of the strategy and the the actual document. So the measures are in place. I was going to have a chat with the chair offline. For those of you who don't know, I'm also the Director of Regional Relationships for Auckland and Northland. And in the Northland network, we do provide that information that you talked about in terms of all the project budgets, and we do a traffic light system. So I was going to suggest a slightly different format to the chair that we can perhaps run at the next RTC meeting.
Yep, we'd welcome that. Does that answer all your questions and queries, Your Worship?
Just a supplementary comment.
Sure.
I understand there's a whole lot of money going into the Road to Zero, but the bucket size is reducing because rail's coming out of it now. So you must be doing it at the expense of something else. And we'd just like to know what's missing out, because we won't concentrate on that in our RLTP if there's no funding for it.
Yep, I'll get that to you.
Okay, we need to move on. Deputy Mayor Donaldson and Mayor Turner, I can see your hand up. You can now put it down. So you'll follow Deputy Mayor Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and apologise if there's any background noise. I've got a log chipper across the road. But my question is, through you, Steve, is regarding the 90% fund rate for Innovating Streets Pilot Fund. And it was mentioned yesterday in the NZTA Urban Planning webinar that round one closed off yesterday, and you've mentioned the other opportunity, June, July, to apply for that fund. Our experience here has been similar funding opportunities have arisen at very short notice. And we put in a cycleway known as the Green Corridor in Rotorua CBD, which unfortunately hasn't had a lot of pickup. And there's a strong pressure to remove it and look at a whole different mode sharing arrangement. So in talking about innovating streets, you just don't get that planning underway and done and dusted in a very short time frame without a lot of risk of getting it wrong. So what's the opportunity of that far rate being extended into the future? Because, you know, we're looking at a completely different landscape in our CBD post-COVID, with a number of businesses failing and potentially a number of, or less viability, I guess, for businesses in the CBD. So we're looking at a whole redesign. But that far rate is very encouraging if we can access it for you know, innovating streets in our CBD going forward. Thanks.
Yeah, that far rate is available for this NLTP period. There is a little bit of an underspend in walking and cycling activity. So this is an opportunity to utilise some of those funds and help towns relook at their spaces. But the funds there to use is, we called it a trial, because it's an opportunity for different councils to explore different ways of doing things, but to build capability within your own councils in terms of this skill set. But we have a team who are more than happy to work with your team around that. So just let me know if you need help.
Thank you. Just a comment, Mr. Chair, through you. That was a really good webinar, but it was only a teaser yesterday. So, you know, the presenters talked to future workshops to get a lot better coordination and planning around urban form, and innovating streets was all part of that. So I don't see us being in a position to access that fund in the short term for well-designed innovative streets. So it would be great if there were opportunities in the future. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Your Worship, Mayor Turner.
Thank you. Just what we would appreciate seeing included in the report going forward, a section on when the next round of engagement on speed management might be, and particularly because Eastern Bay of Plenty councils have been wanting to engage with NZTA on a number of state highway speed limit issues and opportunities for a number of years now. So it would be quite good to get an indication of going forward when that next opportunity would be.
Noted, thank you.
Is that the answer?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I'll take that away and find it in the next opportunity.
Okay, next one, Glenn Crowther, Environmental Sustainability Advisor. Welcome, Glenn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question, Steve. What is the updated timing for delivery of the modal shift plan from the agency in the context of COVID? I'm sure you're aware there are a number of modal shift planning processes underway in the Bay of Plenty, and I was thinking it'd be good to understand whether that can be integrated with the agency's work.
So I'm sorry, Glenn, can't answer that one. We're just reviewing all our work at the moment, obviously with the COVID. We've been in a lucky situation that we've been able to work all the way through, been able to work from home with our teams. So I don't imagine there would be any delay in that particular program, but I'm not close enough, sorry, being fairly new, not close enough to it, so I can find out for you and come back to you directly.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take your hand down, Glenn. Okay, there's no further speakers or no one else has indicated a wish to make a comment. Can I just refer you to page 25? Excellent report, Steve. Page 25, there's a recommendation there. Mayor Turner.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Donaldson. I'll put it, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
It's carried. Moving over to page 37. Can I invite Bron Healy, Principal Advisor, Regional Development, to present this paper, and this is one of the big hitting items. Welcome, Bron. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just endeavour to share my screen.
Mr. Chair, sorry to not use my hand.
Go ahead, Your Worship.
This is the result of what has been signed off by the mayoral group, which is the same people sitting around the table here. Do we need to go through it again?
Well, I think Bron will take those thoughts on board, and he'll make it pretty swift and punchy. So, but I think we're obligated, in view of the quantum, to give it a little bit of due respect today, if you can just bear with us. But can you take on the Mayor's comments there, Bron, when you present, please?
Taken on. I have prepared just a brief summary of the process and the package, which I might share with members.
Thank you. And just a little bit of a background to this, just a snapshot for the benefit of the public that are listening and watching. Okay,
thank you. So basically, the purpose of the report is really to seek the committee's endorsement of this package, approve variations to include the activities within it in the Regional Land Transport Plan. As a backgrounder, and these are things we're all probably aware of, that local authorities in the region have been developing and submitting proposals in response to various requests from central government agencies looking for infrastructure projects to provide post-COVID-19 economic stimulus. And within our region, our local government leaders and councils have demonstrated that commitment to work together to support the economic recovery. So in terms of the opportunity, the Regional Land Transport Plan is a way of demonstrating this collective regional support for transport infrastructure proposals. Consequently, this package has been developed collaboratively by the Regional Advisory Group as a local authority transport action plan for the region. Just looking at the summary of the package itself, total transport investment of 755 million. Within that, there are 5 sub-packages which align with the draft government policy statement on land transport 2021. And each individual activity within the package is assigned to one of these sub-packages. So those are listed and colour-coded on the screen. Sorry, just forwarded one slide. So obviously it is made up of projects and programs that reflect and align with the previous submissions to central government made by local authorities in the region. It also includes the regional position on rail investment, and that comes direct from the Regional Land Transport Plan itself. And it acknowledges and notes the Waka Kotahi national process around identifying state highway investment proposals that was touched on in the earlier report from Steve Mutton. In terms of benefits of developing the package, some of the main ones we think are the collective regional voice to government, response to criteria and some of the requests that came out of central government agencies, and it really positions ourselves for the future. So it opens up projects to multiple potential funding sources, demonstrates consideration in terms of the Regional Land Transport Plan objectives, and it's really making an early start on a set of proposals for our next Regional Land Transport Plan, so front-footing that process. In terms of, I guess, the caveats and limitations, we do note that the projects have been identified for the purposes of seeking 100% government funding as part of any post-COVID-19 economic stimulus package. It also goes on to state that any projects that don't receive funding will be subsequently re-evaluated and reconsidered for potential inclusion in future long-term plans, the RLTP 2021 and the next National Land Transport Program. Moving on to the recommendations, the agenda report includes an assessment of significance against the significance policy in the RLTP. It does note that just one activity is likely to exceed the threshold in the 6 years covered by the current program, and weighing up several other additional factors, it does make the recommendation that the variations are deemed non-significant for the purposes of public consultation at this stage in the process. As noted earlier, the Regional Advisory Group has developed this package together and has made a recommendation that the committee endorses the package and approves the consequential amendments to the Regional Land Transport Plan. So, thank you.
Thanks, Bron. Questions or comments to Bron, colleagues? I'm not showing any here. There are none. I gather everyone's happy to move on. Have I not missed anybody?
I'm quite happy to move the recommendations 1 to 4 on page 38.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Webber. And that's on page 38. And can I also add a fifth one there that we acknowledge the Regional Advisory Group and in particular the outstanding collaboration that's gone on amongst the TLAs to bring this document together under pressure. So are you happy with that, Mayor Webber?
Absolutely.
And who was that?
Mayor Reestra is happy to second.
And Your Worship, Mayor Reestra is seconding it. Is there any further discussion? There being none, God bless her, and we'll send it down to Wellington and wait for the 750 million, 5 million to come back. I'll put it, all those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Bron. Moving on, colleagues, page 67. And Andrew, are you around? Transport Planner?
Hello, Chairman, I am.
Okay, floor's yours. Page 67, colleagues.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen.
And for the benefit of the public, Regional Land Transport Plan 2021, the development of the vision, problems, benefits and objectives. Floor's yours, Andrew.
Thank you. Bear with me 1 minute while I just get this set up.
Mr. Chair, I had raised my hand earlier just to make a quick comment. I possibly should have interrupted there, but I just had one matter, if it's possible to just comment now.
On this particular paper?
On the previous item of what was approved.
The previous one. Okay, yeah. I'm happy to accept that.
Just wanting to raise.
You've taken your mute off, Glenn. You have
Is
to
that better?
start again, but keep it brief if you can.
Yes, no, just the issue of the line entry for what was previously the cycle plan for Tauranga City. I don't know if Mayor Powell has comments on this, but the amount that is entered in there is not the amount that was approved by the City Council for their 10-year program, and it's not the amount that was approved in the 2018 program, and it's not the amount that the cycle team and other transport staff have told me was being planned for their cycleways investment. And I just wanted to raise it to the attention of the committee in case that was seen as an important matter, given how the government priorities are around walking, cycling.
Okay. In fairness to His Worship the Mayor, Bron, can you check that out? Because the letter is due to be signed off pretty quickly. Can you check that out off camera, please?
Certainly, Chair. I can probably just make a comment that the activity listed in the stimulus package is the current activity in the Regional Land Transport Plan. And we do recognise there's a forward program beyond the period of this current plan that involves a considerable more amount of funding, but this just covers the sort of current period of this plan.
Okay, thank you. We need to move on, everyone, back to page 67. Andrew, floor's yours, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Kia ora koutou. My name is Andrew Williams and I'm new to the transport team and the RTC. Today I'm presenting my paper, Development of the Regional Land Transport Plan 2021. There's a dump truck in the background, sorry about that. I have a few slides to run through and there's an opportunity for the committee to discuss the content and provide staff with some high-level observations. Just making sure you can all see the presentation.
Just before you start, Andrew, just to give colleagues a heads up, Councillor Nees has indicated some amended recommendations, which we'll deal with at the end. So she has given notice to me on that. Andrew, back to you.
Okay, thanks, Chairman. So just a bit of background on the development of the RLTP. The RTC previously resolved to undertake a tactical review of the RLTP 2018 to identify the key areas where targeted strategic analysis is required to meet central government direction. RTC has now commenced the process for preparing the new RLTP with a current focus on the strategic framework. The first step before we move into developing the investment priorities and confirming the prioritisation approach. The purpose of this paper is to provide the committee with an opportunity to review and provide feedback on the vision statement, the current ILM, including the problems, benefits and their weightings, and the objectives of the draft RLTP 2021. Today we are seeking your high-level observations so staff can take these back for further work. An important aspect of the RLTP strategic direction is its vision statement. The statement defines where the region wants to be and focuses on a long-term aspiration. The current statement there is in front of you. Best transport systems for a growing economy and a safe, healthy and vibrant bay lifestyle for all. The vision statement is still considered to reflect the region's desired long-term future transport state. However, there may be some scope for amendments. And I've got some questions here for the RTC members to consider. I'm not sure how you want to manage this, Chairman, but
Andrew, can you just pause for 1 minute?
Sure.
Is Worship Mayor Webber? Followed by Councillor Nees. Mayor Webber, are you there? I'll move to Councillor Nees.
Just addressing the first question.
Yes.
Best transport system that is fully funded for a growing economy and a safe. At some stage, this region needs to understand how we're going to fund these great aspirations. Because if there is no funding stream, nothing will ever happen. And I raised it before when my question to Mr. Mutton. Where is the funding stream? We've had these plans every 3 years. we might get an award for how well they're printed and worded, but as to how well we fund them, we have done absolutely zilch.
That's a good point, Your Worship. It could be an item that you could raise with the Minister this afternoon, perhaps.
No, sorry, with all due respect, this has got nothing to do with the Minister.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is how we as the players are going to fund it, what we propose we need to do. Okay. NZTA have to answer their own question, but we as councils have to do it as well.
Right, good point. We'll take that on board, most definitely. Councillor Nees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, overarching comments, and that is, while I agree there is some alignment between our current RLTP and the GPS, I don't believe it's a strong realignment. I'm thinking back to the fact that the last GPS came out at the same time that we were finalising our RLTP, and while we had picked up environmental issues, I don't believe they're anywhere near as strong, and we didn't prioritise them as highly as the government is doing in this GPS at the moment. So I actually am seeking a bit more recognition of environmental issues and climate change and carbon reduction in our RLTP. So my suggestion for the vision in particular is to add in, and I'm not suggesting that we seek a low carbon transport system at this point, but a more sustainable outcome for our transport. So possibly best transport system for a growing, I can't actually see it because on the screen, because for a growing economy and a safe, healthy, vibrant and sustainable bay lifestyle for us all, just to bring in that sustainability, more climate change focus into our vision.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nees. Your Worship, Mayor Webber, did you want to capture your thoughts? I'm happy to accept a further part of that list of recommendations about your funding concerns.
Well, I'll pick it up with the recommendations because I want to add a sixth recommendation. But I also want to make the point. Oh, I put my hand up again. Councillor Nees makes the valid point. We must learn from the last RLTP not to make the same mistakes. And I just wonder, in the second question that we're being asked here, is we've just got to align ourselves with what is coming out of the NLTP, because we got a clear serve from the Associate Minister after the meeting. Did you not pay attention? Now, some of us would agree with her who weren't on the committee, but we've just got to get it right this time. And if we're not aligned with central government, and I just wonder whether we've got to go back to the drawing board.
Okay. Andrew, keep going with your presentation.
Sure, thanks for that, Chairman. Moving on to the next slide, which is our problems and benefits. At the time of developing the RLTP 2018, a series of workshops were held to take the RTC through an ILM exercise to refine the region's problem and benefit statements. The outcomes of the exercise provide direction to develop the strategic framework of the existing RLTP. The table pictured illustrates those statements and their respective weightings as included in the RLTP 2018. Since the development of the RLTP and the release of the draft GPS 21 and Arataki, central government's direction has not shifted significantly from the approach taken with the RLTP, although I do take those comments on board. And so there's now the question there for RTC to consider the problems and benefits briefly to provide some high-level observations.
Okay, can I just get you to pause there for a moment, Andrew? Steve Mutton.
Thank you for that. I think what's really important is we need to understand what has changed strategically. You know, we've done a lot of work around UFD, the Mode Shift Plan, Rotorua Connect, COVID as an examples. So we just need to make sure that our problem statements and benefits are aligned with those new overlying strategic documents.
Councillor Nees.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this actually leads on to my proposed change in recommendations, because I believe that things are moving quite fast and changing quite substantially. And I think it's actually too early to give absolute direction on some of these problems and benefit statements, because we've heard from Mr. Mutton that the government's still doing further work on the GPS and various policy documents in NZTA to take into consideration response to COVID-19. And we don't yet see where that's likely to go. There may be more emphasis again on economic recovery, I'm not sure. But what I do believe, and I totally agree with Steve, that we need to revisit our problems and benefit statements. For example, these percentages are used to help us prioritise our projects when we get through to prioritising projects in the RLTP. And I don't believe this adequately addresses the impact of climate change and the direction the government's going on with regard to climate change. I don't think it adequately represents the partnership, the approach with central government, the mode neutral decision making, the addition to rail, all of these different things. And I'm proposing that we have a workshop, Mr. Chair, once we're clearer about where the GPS is going to go, because I think just giving this a nod, which is last ROTP, and saying it's near enough is good enough, I don't think that's going to cut the mustard. So at the very least, we need to split out the environment and climate change and carbon emissions as an issue. We've also, I'd actually like to add in more transport options and improve access to the benefits for the quality of life for people. So I actually think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on these problem and benefit statements, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just pause, Andrew. We've got a number of speakers and some of the staff want to comment also. Your Worship, Mayor Webber, followed by Her Worship, Mayor Riestra, and then Muta would like to make some comments. Your Worship, Mayor Webber.
Thank you. And I'm following on from Jane the same point, but it may be a slightly different tack. I recall the Associate Minister giving us the message after our last RLTP. And I'm also aware of how much work went in these weightings for it to be tossed out the window because NZTA, who are the funders, and central government have a totally different formula. So to me, we're wasting our time in this. Let's just use the NZTA formula, get on with it, because that's where the decision is made. If we come up with an alternative set of numbers, all that happens is they regurgitate it at incredible cost and tell us what's coming out the back end. So let's work together on one set of rules. And this comes back to the fundamental problem definition that if we in NZTA aren't aligned with central government, then why do we even take this any further? End of message. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Riestra, if you're okay, I'll just jump to Namuta, one of the staff members, which might clarify a lot of this, and I'll come to you, I promise you. Namuta, wherever you are, somewhere.
Tēnā koutou, Chair, Mayors, Deputy Mayors and Advisors. I'm Namuta Potasi, General Manager, Strategy and Science for Toimana Bay of Plenty Regional Council. The key issue we're talking here is in relation to timeframes. We've certainly had the direction from NZTA that the timeframes remain the same in relation to having a RLTP by next year in April, and absolutely take on board the request for a workshop. And I think that would be a good recommendation to put forward so that we can flesh out the feedback that we've been giving further and to actually have the space and time to talk this through.
Thank you, Namuta. Your Worship, Mayor Ristra. Mayor Ristra.
Thank you. Yes, just finding my right buttons. Sorry. I wanted to endorse Deputy Chair Jane's comments. I don't think there is enough emphasis on the environmental outcomes in the actual vision statement. And I believe it's a much more wider reaching topic than just reducing emissions. So possibly going back to that little vision statement, looking at something along the lines of safe, healthy, vibrant, environmentally sustainable and resilient bay lifestyle. That's a bit wordy, but I really feel that there's not enough emphasis for what we're needing into the future around environmentally sustainable type of actions and comments that we need to be standing by as an organisation.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Andrew, back to you. Andrew, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and those comments are taken on board. Just moving on.
Just keep working through your presentation.
Sure. So heading into the objectives now. Got 8 in the current RLTP, and I've just illustrated those here with their respective weightings. So they're access and resilience, environmental sustainability, land use and transport integration, energy efficiency, public health, safety, economic efficiency, and affordability. The paper provides a high-level assessment which illustrates alignment with the GPS, although from the discussion, this is obviously not as strong as the paper suggested. It's also considered there's relatively good alignment between other central government documents, including Arataki and the Road to Zero, with some scope for amendments. There's some options here that I've listed as possible ways forward with some of the objectives. With the first one there, you can see the question split into 2 to align further with the GPS, increase the prominence of climate change, which we've discussed, and move affordability to a policy to reflect the value for money principle in the GPS. And then there's some more questions here for RTC, but whether you want to go through those now, I think we've got quite a good picture based on the earlier discussion, but I'll send it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, I think we'll be focusing on some new recommendations. Is that, how much more have you got on your presentation here? Oh, just pause, Andrew. Your Worship, Mayor Ristra.
Yes, just wanted to endorse that. I think that the questions are really important, and we've spent a bit of time putting some answers to those. So would we be able to perhaps send those through rather than, or are you wanting our comments now?
Well, Your Worship, we may be even able to fast track this, which will keep you really happy. So just watch what come up in the recommendations, which I think are going to be amended and played around with considerably.
Ah, good.
You may have a chance to fast track it and input there. So give it some thought now. Any other speakers before I pass back to Andrew? Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just the last slide I had here was an illustration of the RLTP time frame, and just noting that at this stage we're continuing to work to the current timeframes, but keeping abreast of any changes as a result of COVID-19. Thank you.
Is that the end of the presentation?
That is the end.
Okay, thank you. Can I now call on Amanda, my committee clerk, somewhere over in Mount Maunganui? Amanda, can you now put up for us the recommendations that are on page 68? We're going to try and speed this along a little bit. And Councillor Nees, if you're ready to speak to these first off, to give everyone a bit of a heads up. Likewise, Mayor Ristra and Mayor Webber, you can focus in here and make some additional comments. And so, Councillor Nees, would you like to speak to what you would like us to give some consideration to, please? Oh, before you start, Mayor Webber, you'd like to speak? Mayor Webber, your hand's up.
Yes, I'm more than that. I'm in the queue. I'm more than happy for Councillor Neese to go first.
Okay, no, good, thank you. Councillor Neese, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, I have a suggestion for a change to recommendation 2, which is just to take out the word strong, strong alignment. I believe we've got some alignment, but I don't believe it's a strong alignment. So it's just a suggestion to delete strong out of recommendation 2.
Can we just pause there, Councillor? Is there a degree of unanimity on that one, please? I'm assuming everyone's happy with that. Yeah, proceed, Councillor Neese.
Thank you. And I'm suggesting that we combine 2 and 3, as in the agenda papers, and replace it with request staff to consider comments by members on possible changes to the vision, problem and benefit statements and objectives for inclusion in the draft RLTP, and arrange a Regional Transport Committee workshop on recommended changes to components of the RLTP when the signalled COVID-19 related further amendments to the GPS 2021 and other guiding transport documents are known. And then I suggest renumbering the existing number 5 to number 4, but I understand that Mayor Webber has another additional recommendation.
Okay, so would you like us to deal with this one first, or are you going to embellish this one, Mayor Webber? Are you reasonably happy with what's proposed?
I'm understanding we need absolute alignment between what we're doing and NZTA are doing and central government's doing. Absolute alignment, because if we're not going to do that, let's say now.
Do you want to state that as part of the resolution?
No, I'm comfortable with where Councillor Neese is coming, but I'm going to suggest a new number 2.
Okay, well, let's see if we can tidy up and get rid of park number 3. So you're happy to move that, Councillor Neese?
Yes, I am.
I'm happy to second it. Is there any further discussion, colleagues, on what is proposed for a new 3? Your Worship, Mayor Riestra.
Thank you. Yes, totally agree with those changes. I just wanted to check that we have enough time to do that. 1, having a workshop, and 2, working on the changes around the vision and so on. Do we have the, will we have enough time if we're still waiting for further information?
Can I defer to you, Namuta, somewhere in this building?
Yes, through the chair, the critical thing will be the timing of the GPS. And so I would seek any direction from NZTA in relation to the timing of that.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further speakers for or against the amended 3 before I pass over to His Worship Mayor Webber? There being none, I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Mayor Webber, floor is yours.
Thank you. I would strongly propose a new number 2, which reads that all parties to the Bay of Plenty 2021 Regional Land Transport Plan commit to funding all proposals through their respective annual plans and long-term plans. Now, if we're not going to do that, then everything else is an exercise in futility. Because this is the problem we've had for 12 years that I've been involved in local government. We all write the words, we're all pretty, we pat ourselves on the back, we're happy with the pictures, we're happy with the colours, but nobody commits to taking it through to the funding streams. And the amount of work that staff put in behind this, I think it behoves us all at governance to actually stand to attention and say, yes, we'll support this with some funding lines. Because I hear the comments about environmental and I hear about 0 deaths on the road, but they all come at a cost. And if it's not an annual plan or a long-term plan, then it's all words. It is no hard targets. So I would like to see that. I'm quite happy to move a new number 2, that all parties to the Bay of Plenty 2021 Regional Land Transport Plan commit to funding all proposals through their respective annual plans and long-term plans.
Okay. Is there a seconder for what His Worship is proposing?
Mr. Chair, can I just ask, that's an additional recommendation, not a replacement recommendation for 2? So
Well, we've just agreed to kill number 2.
No, not yet, Your Worship. You've proposed that we do with your replacement.
No. We have just moved and seconded that number 2 and number 3 become a new number 3.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
So there is a vacancy alongside number 2.
No, sorry. I combined 3 and 4 to make a new 3, and I've intended that 2 would stand, but with the deletion of the word strong. Because it's just a procedural recognising some alignment of.
Well, what I'm suggesting is number 2. If we don't get this funding up at the top of the recommendations, everything else after it actually is a waste of time. So, if we are not prepared to do that, let's disband the committee now and tell central government, we can write stories, but they're fictional, they're not real.
Well, can you put some words together that can be combined with what Councillor Nees is proposing, Your Worship?
No. I want to leave Councillor Nees. I'm comfortable with what she's saying.
Yes.
So combine that, but slide it down the numerical order wherever and put a new number 2 in there, which is what I'm recommending. Okay.
Can you just, Amanda, can you type that up for us and get it up on the screen as a new number 2? Just to help the committee clerk out here, Your Worship, as we go through it.
That all parties to the 2021 RLTP commit to funding all proposals through their respective annual plans and long-term plans.
Is that full stop?
Full stop.
Full stop. Okay, it's been moved by His Worship. Is there a seconder for that?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Seconded, Mayor Campbell. Okay, it's now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? I'm like a one-arm paper hanger here. I tell you what, I'm like sitting in front of Huntley Power Station control panel here.
That was Mayor Powell that seconded that too, Chair.
I've got Steve Mutton wanting to speak, and Your Worship, you've still got your hand up, so I'll come to you in a moment. Steve Mutton.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand the intent of that. It's good. I just question whether all parties includes Wakapuahi, because obviously we can't commit. We've got to go through a process for that through the NLTP.
You're a voting member of this committee, so may I suggest you just abstain and we'll note it at the end when it's put. You happy with that? Okay, moving back to His Worship. Mayor Webber?
Well, if I speak now, that's
your
that's my right to reply. That closes off any other conversation. So I'm more than happy to do.
Any further speakers? There being none, is everyone happy to put the new resolutions 1, 2, 3, 4?
Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, Mayor Turner.
I just want to be clear about the fact that I'm being asked to it hasn't actually to annual plan and long-term plan funding that I can't take to my council ahead before voting on. That seems a bit back to front. I'm not completely sure that I'm being put on the spot here.
I'm more than happy to comment.
Subject to due process or whatever, Your Worship.
No, this is, when we're going through this, if you can't commit to the words which require you to commit to the funds, well, why are you committing to the words if you're not prepared to fund them? And what this means is when you're looking at stuff, we need to understand the financial implications. Well, if you're not doing that, then what you're putting is that you're putting up a whole list of dreams that maybe we'll get round to it.
So are you saying that we put up proposals that have already been signalled in annual and long-term plans?
Well, we've just put up together and we've signed off 775 million worth of projects. Now, presumably, we all think they're good ideas, or we wouldn't have put them up to central government. Yep. What you're required to do now then is, if you're not going to take it through to your long-term plan or your annual plan, how the hell are you going to fund it?
That's right. Just checking the order in which. Okay, thank you. You made it clear now.
Chair, can I?
Yes, Mayor Powell, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I've just got a slight tech problem. I can't hold my hand up for some reason. My apologies for just yelling out. I just wanted to support what Mayor Webb is saying. I think it's really important that we, as a group, find a way of moving the plans forward with the pace that is potentially going to be enabled in the post-COVID environment. So this certainly has my absolute support. I think there's been a lot of discussion over a lot of things across many years. I think this is now the time to say we're going to move forward. And Mayor Webber was right in what he said on a couple of occasions now. We've had it made very clear to us by cabinet ministers that if we don't pony up, and that was the term that was used the other day on a conference call, and really pony up in what effectively is co-investment partnership with central government, then we will not be, the money will walk. I think we had that, Minister Jones said that to us the other day in a related meeting, that the money will walk to another region if we aren't seen to be a viable and mature co-investment partner. So this certainly has my support.
Yep, sage comments. In terms of the mover and seconder, I had down Mayor Campbell as the seconder. Was it Mayor Powell? Just a point of clarification. Who seconded Mayor Webber's proposal?
Mayor Powell did.
Mayor Powell. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Okay. Are there any further speakers before I put the resolutions one through?
Yes, Mayor Riestra.
Yes, Your Worship, go for it.
I think that's possible for us to be doing this, but I do understand that if NZTA are funding a component and they aren't able to state that, doesn't this make it a bit more difficult for us to be saying, yes, we're going to do all this, but they can't?
Anyone want to comment?
Well, yes, that's the very point. If you know, why are we doing all this? This takes a lot of executive cost, a lot of resource, and if NZTA are not able to commit, then we need to put that up front and say this is a wish list, and don't expect central government. Because I think, Mayor, if you just read what Minister Twyford said to our equivalents in Waikato last week, that if you're not prepared to put the money up in our plans, then don't ask central government to do the same in theirs.
All I'm asking is, are we then expecting NZTA to say, yes, they can do all of what we are wanting to do? Because
absolutely. And that's the point I was making, Mayor Riestra. When they came up with zero.
Are they able to do that right now?
Well, we're not asking them to do it right now. What we're saying is when we sign off the document, it must have a funding stream with it. Because if it hasn't got a funding stream, it's never going to happen.
Steve, did you want to comment at this point?
I agree with me, Webber, in terms of the intent, and anything that goes into the RLTP does need a commitment for the local share. But from a transport agency's perspective, I can't commit to funding because there is a process that needs to be followed, and it's all dependent on the available government funding and prioritisation against other regions.
Councillor Neves.
Thank you. That was Steve's actually clarified what I was going to comment. The Regional Land Transport Committee's list of projects is our bid, which is submitted to government for consideration for inclusion in the NLTP. And my understanding is NZTA has to balance all of the bids across the whole of the country, and they decide which ones, based on the government strategic direction, that they can afford to fund. But my understanding is that everything we put in our RLTPs, our local projects, we should be totally committed to and able to fund and have it in our annual and long-term plans. It may be that NZTA cannot fund it in the time frame that we want, but that's just the grim reality of life, I'm afraid.
Okay, any further speakers? There being none, Your Worship, Mayor Webber, any final comments before we move forward?
No, I think the points have been validly made. So what we will do in our RLTP, there'll be a caveat that it'll be subject to NZTA having the funds to meet our requirements.
Fine. Are you happy to? Sorry, someone's speaking in the background. There being none, is some Mayor Webber? Are you happy to move 1 to 5?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Mayor Powell, are you happy to second that?
Sorry, Chair, just very slow to unmute. Yes, indeed, I am happy to second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. NZTAs, Steve, are you just abstaining from that one particular one that's referred to there, or do you wish to note that you abstain from all of this?
Just at one point, because we can't commit the funding at this stage.
Okay. Amanda, can you note that, please? Okay, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Aye. Carried. Moving over, colleagues, unless anyone wanted to have a 5-minute break. Did anyone want to have a 5-minute break? Yes, please. Thumbs are up everywhere. 5-minute break, and we will reconvene dead on 11 o'clock. Thanks. quorum. Okay, I think we're ready to go, everyone. Welcome back. Page 77, colleagues. Bron, your presentation, Regional Land Transport Plan Variation for the Western Bay of Plenty Transport System Plan. Bron.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief with this. Essentially, this is a request to add the transport planning activity for developing the Western Bay of Plenty Transport System Plan to the RLTP to access funding support via the NLTP, as we've sort of been talking about the process in the previous report. So in essence, the transport system plan will translate the urban form and transport initiative outcomes into implementation with a particular focus on critical parts of the Western Bay of Plenty transport network. And within the appendix of the report, the estimated cost for this planning phase of the activity is $2.5 to $3 million. And as members will see, the recommendation in the report is for the activity to be added to the RLTP.
We lost you there, Bron. You're there, Bron.
Hi, Chair. We
lost you there. Can you just recap on the last few sentences you made?
Oh, sorry. So I guess in essence, the transport system plan will translate the urban form and transport initiative into implementation with a particular focus on critical parts of the Western Bay of Plenty transport network. The estimated cost for this planning phase of the activity is $2.5 to $3 million, and there's a recommendation in the report to add the planning activity to the RLTP.
Any questions or queries to Bron? Your Worship, Mayor Webber.
Sorry to be, but given what we have just passed in number 2 on funding, have we got a guarantee that if we spend this $3 million doing the planning and thinking again, that the relevant parties are going to take it through to their annual plan and their long-term plan? Because if they're not, because the wording I'm reading of the UFTI agreement is very similar to one by the same parties where they're sitting around this table now. So we signed, or our predecessors signed in 2004, and in the intervening 16 years, nothing has happened by some parties. So, you know, unless there's a commitment by the parties to this agreement that they're going to put it in this year's annual plan, which they're signing off now, and next year's LTP, then I'd have to question why we spend any money on this.
Happy to take a further recommendation if you want to capture it with some words.
Well, I'd suggest we let it lie on the table till we get that commitment from the individual parties.
That's for this whole paper.
Absolutely.
Okay.
If you're asking people to spend $3 million on something we don't know has got the support of the total commitment.
Okay, Bron, would you like to respond to Mayor Webber in terms of the implementation or whatever of this particular request for work?
Through the chair, I guess I can't speak for the respective parties.
No.
This is simply an administrative process to access a contribution from the National Land Transport Program to support funding the activity that all the 4 key parties have signed up to.
Okay, Councillor Nees.
Yes, that was going to be my point, Mr. Chair. If it's not in the RLTP, we cannot access funding from the NLTF for this project, which means we won't be able to undertake the actual planning. So my understanding is that we have to sign it off and get it in the RLTP so that we will get the match share from NZTA. Is that right?
Bron?
Correct. I think in terms of this particular process, the Western Bay of Plenty Transport System Plan, the primary funding, local government funding partner is Tauranga City Council.
Mayor Webber's about to propose that it lie on the table. The implications.
No,
sorry, Your Worship.
Then I'm more than happy to add a fourth recommendation.
A four. You put some
Yes.
words around it, Your Worship.
That the parties to the UFTI agreement guarantee that they will take through to their annual plans and long-term plans the funding requirements to meet the outcomes proposed in the document.
Okay. Amanda, have you captured His Worship's words? Can you put it up, please? Page
Sorry, 1 moment.
Page 77, please, Amanda.
What was the rest of the recommendation?
Your Worship,
The funding requirements. No. So after the funding requirements to meet their agreed outcomes.
That's a full stop, is it?
Yes.
Okay. His Worship has moved that. Is there a seconder for that? I'll second that. I'll put it. All those in any speakers for or against?
Yeah.
Any speakers for or against?
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yep. Dave Donaldson, question.
Yeah, thank you. Just for clarity, through you, can I ask Bron or Mayor Webber to specify who are the parties to the UFTI agreement? And
absolutely, it is Tauranga City Council, Western Bay District Council, the Regional Council, and New Zealand Transport Agency.
Thank you.
Amanda, you don't need to do that now, but can you add those list of parties as part of the resolution when you tidy this all up?
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, a question of clarification, if I may.
Yes. Mayor Powell.
Just the word guarantee, and I appreciate exactly and support where Mayor Webber's going with this. The reality, of course, of a guarantee to take through to their annual plans for the funding requirements will require, council approval, various council approval for this to happen. While we can all advocate as much as we want to, that guarantee will be, I think, very difficult to give ahead of council meetings. And in fact, one would wonder if it doesn't cut across the democratic process.
Yep.
I'm just checking that we can actually do this.
Good point. Mayor Webber, have you got another word that you'd like to put in there to accommodate Mayor Powell's thoughts?
Well, it's that the parties to the UFTI agreement propose to their own councils. I come back to this. This is going to, this is over $1 billion, and I have difficulty spending $3 million in an investigative, because we've done this. This is nothing new. But if we're not prepared to take it forward to some solid funding, then you've got to ask the question: why are you doing it?
Yep, good point.
Your worship. It only applies to Tauranga City, Western Bay, the Regional Council, and NZTA, but this is asking the support of the other players.
Yep.
And Chair, I absolutely understand where Mayor Webber's coming from. I just, from a purely questioning the word guarantee from a democratic process that hasn't gone through consultation and hasn't been discussed with elected members of the various councils. I'm just questioning that process.
Okay. Can I just jump now back to Namuta somewhere, please, in the building? You wanted to make a comment.
So through the chair, each of these will need to go through each respective council, and so we do have a process to follow.
Okay. Hold on. As I said, I'm like a one-arm paper hanger here. Mayor Riestra.
Yes, because this involves other parties but not us,
yes.
And I do not have the background or the history around all of what happens here. I would probably need to abstain from that particular number 4 as it reads, because I don't have the knowledge or the follow back from my council as to how I would need to be looking at this. I am happy to vote 1, 2 and 3.
Yeah, I can understand you abstaining on that on behalf of the Portuguese, because it is specific to a Western Bay major initiative. So
Ditto Rotorua Lakes Council, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we will note that when we come to it. Just going back to His Worship Mayor Powell, are you happy with the wording as it stands now? Because you're a major player in this.
Yeah, yes, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay,
I will thank you to Mayor Weber for his consideration.
Yeah, I will put 4 on its own at this point in time, noting that Rotorua Lakes Council and the Portuguese District Council wish to note that they abstain. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And then can we revert back to the other 1, 2 and 3? Someone happy to move those? Mayor Weber,
happy to move.
Mayor Weber, Councillor Nees, any further speakers for or against? Got Councillor Nees with your hand up here. Councillor Nees?
Oh, it's a bit late now, Mr.
No,
Chair.
go for it. Go for it.
I was just worried about the accuracy of the wording in 4, because the parties to the AFTI agreement are the councils who are then going to propose to their own councils. So it's a little bit of, it's a little nonsensical, but anyway, it's been passed now. So I think we all know the intent.
Okay. Okay, I will put 1 to 3. Oh, Steve Mutton.
So just a question in terms of the participants under AFTI. Is Manawa Whenua included in AFTI?
Yes.
Namuta?
Yes.
And so it would be appropriate to specify them as a partner?
Yes.
They're not a funding partner.
No, they're not a funding partner. No, you're right. Okay, reverting back to 1 to 3, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Moving over, colleagues, page 85. Bron, you've got a PowerPoint presentation here, and Andrew, you'll be speaking to the second part, the New Zealand Rail submission. So page 85, colleagues. Submissions on the draft government policy statement on land transport and the draft New Zealand Rail Plan. This has to be signed off, colleagues, with a degree of urgency, and has to be in Wellington on Monday, as I understand. But Bron, you can elaborate on that. We've got letters here ready for the mayors and chairs to sign as I speak. So pressure's on. Bron, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just try and bring up my presentation. Okay, how's that looking? Have we got a...
Yep.
Am I sharing my screen?
Kick off. Yes, it's looking good. Welcome, Bron. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you. So what I'll do is just very briefly provide a background and cover the content of the draft submissions, and then perhaps take members' feedback and thoughts at the end of the presentation. So the Ministry of Transport has released drafts of the government policy statement on land transport and the New Zealand Rail Plan for formal engagement, with submissions closing on Monday. Now, obviously, we're aware that with COVID-19, there may be a further set of amendments to the GPS in particular. And at this stage, we don't have any information on how that process might unfold. So we're basically taking it as given that we provide feedback on the current draft GPS as it stands. And as you can see from the agenda, draft Regional Transport Committee submissions have been prepared for members to consider and approve, and these are being prepared with Regional Advisory Group input. We've probably already covered a little bit about what the draft government policy statement covers. We have those 4 key proposed priorities being safety, better transport options, improving freight connections, and climate change. Looking at the draft comments in the submission, generally it supports the overall strategic direction in the draft GPS and also the clear delineation of roles and responsibilities for the different parties. It notes the RTC's expectation that the draft will be amended to incorporate the government's response to COVID-19 and seeks another opportunity to provide feedback once this has been done. The submission also supports working closely with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to strengthen the links between transport and land use planning and housing. Looking at the comments on the draft strategic direction, the submission strongly supports the ongoing commitment to road safety and implementation of the Road to Zero approach. There is support for better travel options as a strategic priority. However, the submission notes this is focused exclusively on towns and cities and therefore seeks amendment to include reference to also providing better access options for people in small settlements and rural areas. The submission supports improving freight connections. It also supports the emphasis on climate change, but requests that this be broadened to include reference to other environmental impacts.
Bron, just pause for one moment, please. Councillor Nees.
Yeah, if you're comfortable, I'll wait till Bron's finished his recommendation. I've got just 3 odd comments that I'd like added in.
Okay, fine. Keep going, Bron.
Thank you. Other comments on the strategic framework seeks a stronger role for the transport outcomes framework in the document, which is sort of your longer term objectives for the land transport system that aren't subject to, I guess, a change of government. So these implement the Treasury's Living Standards framework and are connected to the sort of four well-beings approach. There's also support for reframing value for money as an investment principle that applies to all decisions, and a request to include reference to the legislative requirement to take RLTPs into account when making investment decisions. Moving into the sort of the funding buckets or the activity classes, we support, or the draft submission supports, ring fencing Road to Zero funding, but requests that it be allocated across 4 different activity classes just to improve transparency around where that funding's going. Support for the significant allocation of funding to public transport. A request to increase funding for walking and cycling to lock in positive behavioural change post-COVID-19. Request to increase funding for local road maintenance to cover increasing cost pressures. It seeks investment in travel demand management activities in a standalone activity class, and notes support for a proportionate increase in fuel excise duty and road user charges where there is a demonstrable need for increased investment. Sorry, I skipped a slide there.
Can we deal with these 2 separately?
Sure.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe open it up to take comments on
the land transport submission. Councillor Nees.
Thank you. In the submission, we note support for funding in the NLTF for rail and coastal shipping, and I'd like to add in that we support that so long as the quality and functionality of the rest of the transport network aren't impacted. Because I wouldn't like, and I think Mayor Weber mentioned this before, that the rest of the, our rural roads and our core lifeline areas don't receive funding because we are having funding diverted from the NLTF into rail and coastal shipping. And with regard to that, I would like to seek more guidance on the principle of mode neutrality and its application in transport planning and the GPS, because that's going to be most important when decisions are being made at a national level or even a regional level as to whether we're going to fund rail or our roading networks. Also, picking up on Mayor Riestra's comments, I'm a bit concerned that there's a reduction in relative investment in state highway and local road improvements, and just want to highlight that resilience is a key outcome of the GPS, and that climate change doesn't just have emissions impacts, that it also greatly impacts the resilience of our roading network because of increased heavy rain events and sea level rise, etc. So I'd like some sort of comment around the need to ensure that the investment in our maintenance and improvements is sufficient to maintain the resilience of the whole of our network. And then my last comment is the GPS notes the Auckland Transport Alignment Project and the Let's Get Wellington Moving commitments as standalone commitments for the NLTF. And I think we should also mention that the Western Bay is entering into a similar partnership with central government through UFTI, which will contain a substantial package of transport investments to manage and provide for growth and good urban forms through integrated transport planning, and that a major package of work is expected to be confirmed with government over the next 12 months. And perhaps we ask for that there be recognition to the upcoming urban growth partnership packages and programs, because I know Waikato is also moving along this track as well, so that we don't just have Wellington and Auckland signalled out, but we recognise these other emerging urban development partnerships.
I think you've all but rewritten the submission, Councillor. So, Bron, a lot there to take on board, some initial comments, and I'm mindful that I've got Her Worship Mayor Riestra and His Worship Mayor Weber waiting to speak. Bron and Mayor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, all valid points that we can raise in the draft submission if everyone agrees. Yeah, endeavour to incorporate that into our draft.
Can you, before I pass on to the other people wanting to speak, Brian, can you just talk about the process from here on in? Because I'm mindful this is meant to be on desks in Wellington on Monday. How can we feed this all into that process?
There is a recommendation in the report that the committee delegates you, the authority, as the chair, to approve the final submission. Okay. I'm not sure if there'll be sufficient time to sort of have a backwards and forwards within this process, but if the committee is comfortable to delegate that, I can prepare a sort of amended draft and put it in front of you, Chair.
Yep. But we'll certainly consult with all our colleagues. They have our assurance on that one. But have you captured Councillor Nees's comments? Or Councillor Nees, you could perhaps go to Brian offline with the key points you'd like to incorporate.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, quite good to have those written down in some form.
Thank you for that. The pressure's on. Her Worship Mayor Riestra.
Thank you. I would like to again endorse Deputy Chair Jane's comments on some of them. Is it possible, Brom, for you to go back one slide, please? Thank you. Comments from Opotiki District. Our key concerns are still on road safety commitment. We'd still like people in smaller settlements and rural areas with better travel options to access places for earning and learning and participating in society. I feel there's not enough emphasis, and I agree again with Deputy Chair Jane, not enough emphasis on climate change.
Sorry, we're losing some of your words there, Your Worship. So.
Yep, no, that's good. And when you request an increase in walking and cycling funding, we'd also like for you to add in there that more funding for improvements, not just new, but for improvements.
Okay.
And
Captured.
Last, around the local road maintenance, we would be asking for a 10 to 15% increase in funding for local road maintenance.
Okay, Bron, can you liaise with Her Worship today with regards to the points that she'd like to have included pertaining to the Eastern Bay?
Sure, Chair. Just a couple of brief comments. Yeah, one of the
Please.
In the draft submission, the request to increase local road maintenance is 10 to 15%, because that's the feedback we had through RAG, that those are the annual cost pressures on local road maintenance activities. So that's incorporated within the draft.
Excellent, thank you.
His Worship Mayor Webber.
Yeah, thank you. I think the slide we're on at the moment is a contradiction. We're asking for increased funds, increase this, increase that. I just wonder whether we want to put a pretty significant caveat in the front of this, that since the hypothecated fund was destroyed by taking funding out of roads into rail, we have seen a significant reduction in income or funding available. COVID has not helped the cause. So we've got another loss of revenue to NZTA through the fuel excise and the road user charges. And I think we just need to highlight this, that we our rural roads, there is just no money available for them. Even getting far rates now, you've got to almost die on the sword for them. And so they need to understand that by moving to rail, and I understand the funding for that, they have significantly reduced the transport budget, and it's having a significant impact on rural and provincial, and to my view, to a lesser degree, the metros. And I'd like to see that included somewhere in a paragraph in bold and capital letters.
Does anyone have a different view to Mayor Webber? There being none, Bron, can you pick up those comments from His Worship and incorporate those in the preamble, please?
Will do.
Thank you. You'll need to talk to Mayor Webber today, as we know there's huge pressure on us on these two documents. His Worship Mayor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. Look, just three things quickly, two reinforcing what Mayor Webber's been saying. One is that, in terms of the submission process and the criteria, if we can mirror government so it looks like and feels like what they're wanting, I think the better. The funding implications of the Road to Zero and climate change, as Mayor Webber has said on a number of occasions, is expensive, critically important. But again, I just come back to the conversation we had previously that we need to be in some way committed to this, or at least be able to get our councils across the line on a discussion around the funding. And the last thing I'll say in terms of their freight options, particularly rail, we, Tauranga, are working, increasingly more closely with Hamilton on exactly this in terms of getting our strategy aligned and therefore our submissions to central government aligned, and apropos what I said before, looking like something they can understand. I would encourage that we, Bay of Plenty, work as closely as we can with the Waikato on this, because if we're talking about rail particularly, once the Port of Auckland closes, and assuming that the majority, or at least 50%, and without knowing that in advance, will come to the Port of Tauranga, the freight is going to exponentiate. And we know that Port of Tauranga manages currently 1.1 million TEUs, Auckland 900,000, and yet Port of Tauranga's capacity is 2.6. So there would still be if Tauranga took all of Auckland, 600,000 thereabouts TEU capacity. So I think in respect of these conversations, Bay of Plenty and Waikato working more strategically together, I think is going to be really important, Chair, going forward on this particular issue. So I'd ask that we lift the helicopter up another 1,000 metres above the Kaimais and look to both regions as part of proposals going forward in respect of this.
Okay, Bron, you've captured all of that?
Through the chair, yes, I think it's probably something we can add to the draft rail plan submission, just around working together with the Waikato region in this space.
And Bron, you will get support from Hamilton. I can assure you. Paula will absolutely give you support on this.
You're going to have a busy weekend, Bron. Okay, is that everything on land transport, Bron?
Correct.
Okay, are you or Andrew going to be doing the New Zealand Rail Plan?
I can briefly introduce it, but perhaps Andrew could be available to comment on any of the detail.
Okay, page 87, colleagues, the draft New Zealand Rail Plan. Fire ahead.
So very briefly, this basically implements the government's long-term vision and priorities for the National Rail Network, and it implements key recommendations from the Future of Rail review that they conducted. Essentially, the draft Regional Transport Committee submission is seeking adoption of a full integration model into the longer term, noting that it's partial at the moment. Supports building a resilient and reliable rail network over the next decade as priorities. Notes the critical role of rail for the Bay of Plenty, the Port of Tauranga, and those key interregional connections, and essentially supports the draft strategic priorities in the plan.
Okay. Andrew, did you want to fill in any gaps?
It's fine from me. Just taking comments.
Okay, colleagues, addressing your comments specifically to the New Zealand Rail Plan is Worship Mayor Weber.
Thank you. I think we need to add in there somewhere, we also see the need for appropriate inland ports to meet the need to support this. And you know, this is all part of building the story to make sure that Kawerau, Murupara, and those other further points out in our network do have the right facilities at their end to make us get better use of the rail network.
Yes, I don't think anyone would have an objection to that. Glenn Crowther. Glenn.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to Bron in regards to the comment that the Bay of Plenty's Regional Land Transport Plan advocates for increased investment in passenger rail linking Tauranga, Hamilton and Auckland. I just wondered where the committee is in terms of what advocating it is currently doing, and also whether Rotorua is now part of that conversation for advocating for interregional passenger rail.
Councillor Donaldson, I was going to defer to you because I know this is something that the Mayor is incredibly passionate about, reinstating the rail link between Rotorua and Auckland. Did you want to make some comments?
Yeah, look, I would support Glenn 100% on that. You know, we have, I know it would be a huge investment to reinstate that linkage, but Rotorua would welcome that going forward. So yeah, absolutely like to see that in there.
Okay, any other questions or comments moving forward, everybody?
Well, just a point of clarification, Mr. Chair. The other part of my question, perhaps for Bron, is what is being advocated in what forums right now, given the post-COVID scenario. There's been a lot of talk about fast-tracking some of that investment.
Through the chair, it's Namuta here.
Namuta.
I can assist Bron in answering that question. So some of you will be aware through the Upti Urban Form and Transport Initiative, and we've got a paper shortly on that to RTC. There is a paper on rail as part of that project. We're also working with our colleagues across the hill in terms of Waikato Regional Council, Hamilton City Council, Ministry of Transport, Untitled City Council are part of the conversation too in terms of looking at the interregional rail work as well. So work continues in that space.
Okay, I think that's sufficient discussion. Taking us back, colleagues, to page 85, there are recommendations there. I'm happy to move, seconded Councillor Donaldson. Any further speakers to the recommendations before I put them?
Just for purity, go across to the top of the next page, which gives you the delegation.
Yes, but that won't be done without an immense amount of consultation, I can assure you, Your Worship, in coming days with the various TLAs, particularly
from our council, with all due respect to our colleagues, we have absolute confidence in your ability to do us proud.
Would you put that in writing, Your Worship, at election time? You know,
more than happy, and gold-plated as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded. I will put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Bron, can we leave it in your hands to? I'm just getting some notes here from. Okay. Yep. We've got some electronic issues with Ofty coming up, so that's okay. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay. Moving over, everybody, to page. We're on the home straight. Page 117. The Urban Form Transport Initiative. Robert, have we got you there, the project director? Are you around?
Yes, I'm online.
And we understand Janina's got some electronic issues she's frantically dealing with at the moment. So you may be flying on your own to start with. So Robert, the floor is yours. Robert Brodnax, everyone, and for the benefit of the public, he's the Ufti project director. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So you have a paper from us updating where the project is at, all the various work streams that are coming to a close at the moment as we begin to finalise the Ufti report. I just thought I'd update you on timelines because we didn't really cover those in the paper, and then open to you for any questions. So we have our first workshop with the Smart Growth Leadership Group on the 20th of May, and that'll be the first airing with the political leadership of the emerging optimal program, if you like, and the contents of the final report. We're aiming for the Smart Growth Leadership Group to come together in mid-June to receive that final report. At which point two things will happen. One, the final report will be submitted to the New Zealand Transport Agency Board for its consideration as a program business case, and that gets you into their investment cycle. And the second thing that will happen is that Smart Growth will move forward with revising the settlement pattern in accordance with our recommendations, as part of a refresh of the entire smart growth strategy, and they'll do that jointly with the government, who the proposals are ministers will join the Smart Growth Leadership Group as full voting members in that group. So that's enough of a update from me. I think it's over to you all for any questions. I can do what I can to answer them, recognizing that we're in the stage where we haven't got to a final recommendation yet. There's still a few moving parts floating around.
Janine, did you fix your computer problems? No, I don't think we have her. No. Okay, questions, colleagues, to Robert. Any questions, please, pertaining to Ufti update? Doesn't seem to be any. Okay, I will move the recommendation on page 117. Seconded Councillor Nees. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Again, carried. I'm happy now to just lead us into a roundtable verbal update from committee members and advisors. If everyone's happy to spend a couple of minutes and share with us and the public as to what's hot in their spot at the moment. So, Councillor Nees, putting you on the spot. Do you want to lead off first? Just a few things that are happening at Regional Council at the moment.
Oh, well, obviously we're working on the public transport planning for moving into level 2. We're awaiting guidance on levels of service and distancing for that. we recently signed off the AFTI Memorandum of Understanding with, which is going to be signed with government. And I can't think of anything else at the moment, Mr. Chair, unless you can add.
No, pretty busy agendas for everyone at the moment. Mayor Campbell, Kauro.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've been quietly sitting back here and taking in all this technology, and I'm loving it, to be honest. I don't have to look for a parking area in front of your
busy Kauro.
Yeah. Hey, look, can I just say that the good part of this forum is now that the public it is open to the public, and I hope that they appreciate some of the frustrations from not only from elected members but from staff, and the pressure that goes on the funding regime. That is a big thing. But look, with Kauro, we've only got 5 kilometres of state highway that goes through our district, and it's so important for Kauro to make sure that we are fully supportive of the rest of the districts, from Taupo, Rotorua, Whakatane, Poriki, obviously Western Bays and Tauranga, because we are a manufacturing town. We don't we process and manufacture, so goods in the back door and out the front door, and it's all got to get to the port of Tauranga. And there's a lot of we put a lot of exacerbation on the roading system. And so, I'm just grateful that I can be part of just supporting all of my council colleagues in their endeavours to make things a lot easier and a lot safer for everyone to go about their business. But can I just say though, full marks to yourself for running. It is a difficult thing. I've just come into this technological world in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it is a bit different, but by crikey, I'm starting to love it. I'm really loving it. So all the very best, and if I can support in any way I can, I'm right here with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got to say up front, I do favour the full frontal meetings to these. I've got to tell you. So,
I don't want to go about that full frontal.
Deputy Mayor Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just from Rotorua, I'm missing an annual plan, a water services, wastewater services forum by attending this meeting. We have our final annual plan workshop on Monday. So we're a bit behind the 8 ball with our annual plan, but that's because we've been focusing on our economic recovery plan entitled Build Back Better, with 23% of our workforce in tourism. That's been a big concern for us to focus on that economic recovery plan to inform our annual plan process going forward. But our roads have been quiet. It was great to see the poll on the NZTA webinar yesterday, where 94%, I think it was, in the straw poll they conducted online, enjoyed the quieter streets and would like to see that somehow built into the new transport environment going forward. People enjoyed that aspect, and it's great to see NZTA and Downers back on the job with their stage 1 of our Eastern Corridor since we moved into level 3. So that's a quick wrap from us. Thank you.
His Worship Mayor Powell. Mayor Powell, are you still with us?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just furiously unmute. Can I just what Malcolm said, and thank you for a well-chaired meeting. I think we're probably all a bit tired of Zoom calls and all that comes with them, but you've done a great job, so thank you very much. From a Tauranga point of view, yeah, look, we're all busy. We are making right, left and centre, both on the city's behalf and as part of smart growth. Together, combined, it's around about $4.5 billion of submissions. So it isn't insignificant remotely. The speed at which they've been done, and I have to say the quality of work, the depth of detail that the executive team at Tauranga City Council has done is just phenomenal. And I take my hat off and commend them for the timeframes within which we're all working during and hopefully very soon post-COVID-19. Can I just reinforce the camaraderie, the collegial nature of this meeting? I think is really, really important. To be able to work with mayors and chairs and committee members in this way is going to be a really important part of who we are as a wider Bay of Plenty region, and mutual support of each other in times to come, more so than I think ever before in whatever this post-COVID-19 environment looks like. So thanks again, Lyle. Great meeting.
It's how it should be, Your Worship. Your Worship, Mayor Webber.
Thank you, Chair. And once again, I reiterate my earlier points and echo Mayor Tenby's. Yeah, you have a style that I aspire to as a chair.
You've had a few wins today, Your Worship.
and I suppose on that, I go back to my opening comment about the Public Transport Committee and this committee. The world has changed, and I think we need to understand that. And we're an eclectic mix of some significant rural councils with a big metro in the middle and a couple of small metros in Whakatane and Rotorua. And when we look at public transport being absolutely essential, but we're restricted in the bucket of funds we've got. And I think we've just got to accept that we have to be all in together on working out where our priorities are, and so we can go to central government with our story. We've got areas in the back of Apotiki and in the back of Whakatane in our area that are still single lane gravel roads that lead into forestry, where we're putting 50-ton truck and trailers in them. They were designed for horse and carts. And so that's one issue I think we have to look at. The other issue is that the speed of change, the old timeframes just don't work. We've got to be really nimble, as Jane Nees made the point about 6 years ago when I was introduced on the income global finance crisis. We've got to be nimble and able to move. Well, we've had 5 years of training. It's time we put it into practice. That's enough from me, I think.
As I said, you've had a few wins today, Your Worship. Mayor Turner.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I lost about 10 minutes of the meeting when my screen froze and I had to get back on. So I did miss a little bit there. Look, just for us, it's been a little bit of an interesting time because we were literally hadn't even finished the recovery process for Kari White Island before we were plunged into COVID. And so my poor council's lived in crisis most since the October 12th time. So just a couple of things I want to bring up. Prior to the election, we had a couple of reports that had considerable work done by elected people, staff and community representatives around two processes. One was around access, which was led by particularly the disability, but not exclusively the disability sector. We have a large number of people in that space, and I think probably the whole of the Bay of Plenty does. We know that 24% of the population lives with a disability that requires some level of support, and I think it's a bit higher in our region. And the other one was an active Whakatane group that were looking particularly at walking and cycling. Now, what's happened during COVID was, of course, where people have been housebound and very little transport on the road relative to normal, and people have been out cycling and walking in bigger numbers than ever before. We've actually got a petition circulating in our district for around, not so much the district, but the Whakatane township, wanting to reduce speed on all roads within our township to 30k. Now, it's very aspirational, but it sends a signal that there's an appetite, and what COVID-19, if it's done anything positive, it's done is it's really reconnected people to those active modes of transport in a way that perhaps hadn't been as active before. And so they are saying really through this petition, this is an opportunity to say that when we go back, we shouldn't be going back to things as they were. We should be looking at ways to, and that's why I did bring up the fact that in our visionary statement that we need to actually, and I picked up on the word healthy and said, actually healthy is very generic. This committee is talking in the transport space, and the healthy alternative there is these active transport modes that we need to be really thinking about going forward. And I think there's an appetite for the generation that's coming through now to see us be more proactive in that space. And we've had a big challenge, as I just said. Clearly economic recovery, and very grateful to the Crown Infrastructure Fund as well, that's given us some opportunities to look at our long-term plan and pull a couple of projects out that are reasonably shovel-ready, even though we weren't going to be able to afford them for another couple of years yet, and put those up, and we're waiting to see what happens in that space. But you know, it's going to be an interesting time for us. And I also just want to say in this that the Eastern Bay is a sub-region. I want to speak really highly of the work that Colorel's doing around the land port, I'll call it that, for the rail through. I think that's an incredibly good project from a transport perspective for our region. I can't understate how much benefit I think that will bring in terms of taking a lot of trucks off the road ultimately, and reducing traffic numbers there. So I just think that, and also with but the work that's coming online up at a Portakey end with the aquaculture and those kinds of things, we've got a port development now, a boat harbour development that's going to be very tourism focused, but very commercially focused, that I think is going to again have an impact. So that's kind of where we're at, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Steve, you're a full participating member of this committee. Anything at a very stratospheric level you want to share with us about NZTA nationally?
No, thank you, Chair. I think I'll provide enough of my update. I just want to comment and say thank you very much for including me in the RTC. Thoroughly enjoyed the meetings, very well chaired. And I just want to say that the commitment and passion around the table, you should be commended that you're all taking such a huge interest in transport. You know, it is an enabler for economic development. So it's great to hear that, and I look forward to working with you. Okay,
thank you. Glenn? 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess a quick update on a couple of things. The SBN has, the Sustainable Business Network has launched a Carbon Action 2025 program, which launched yesterday. And we're excited because we're partnering with ECA's GNLES, but also the NZTA. So it's great to have the agency as a partner for that. And I think we're strongly looking forward to collaborate around ways to get low carbon transport systems. We, the SBN network had a CEO forum, which saw about 2,800 people watch CEOs such as Mike Bennett from Z Energy. And I wanted to share one comment that he was making at that forum, was that in some respects we have a very narrow window to get change through, because his view of the way things were sitting was that there is a big mood for change. There's a big mood to build back better, as Rotorua has called it, but that things can change pretty quickly. And so I guess that's something that a lot of the leaders in our network have highlighted. In a broader sense around environmental and sustainability organisations, I think there's been lots of commentary to government ministers around what infrastructure plans they support, and right through to legal groups who are putting views on low carbon infrastructure. But I'd just like to echo Mayor Turner's comments around at a community level. I think you've all probably heard the feedback from a lot of community members who have actually thoroughly enjoyed aspects of what has been happening in recent times, and have really benefited a lot in terms of their health and well-being from reconnecting to walking and cycling. So I think it's a really big opportunity, and I think the good thing is that it's actually not the most expensive opportunity. And I know you'll all be feeling very constrained by the financial side, but I think walking and cycling business cases are showing very high BCRs, and I think that's sort of the opportunity that we see out here. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you for your contribution to the committee. John Galbraith, are you still with us?
And Mr. Chair, and thank you for the opportunity.
Just a couple of minutes as our freight advisor.
Really just one key point, and it's great to see how the rail is becoming more and more solidly embedded in our thinking. It's been an obvious gap for a long time. It represents a huge opportunity for us, both from a efficient freight movement, but also climate impact opportunity. So just great to see it coming back into the main menu of regional transport. Thank you.
I don't think we've got Dan Kneebone with us today, have we? I don't think we have, no. Last cab off the rank, Inspector Brent Crowe. Good to have you with us. And just a couple of minutes updating us on road policing issues.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comms check, you can hear us okay?
Yes, indeed.
Perfect. Yeah, just the policing environment through COVID. If there is an upside to all of this, it is the fact that our numbers, and unfortunately my measure of success is unfortunately death, and that is dramatically reduced. Year to date, we are 12% of the national road toll. As compared to this time last year, we were 48%. So that's a good news story. And it's obviously because we had reduced traffic volumes, significantly reduced, and also a higher police presence on the roads. So I guess going forward for the police, we're moving from level 4 out of level 3 and looking at level 2. Our focus is going to be around ensuring masculine social distancing and no inappropriate regional travel, as the Prime Minister mentioned in a briefing yesterday. But we're really looking forward to getting back to level 2, level 1, where we can start focusing on speed, distraction, impairment, and start maintaining what we've been doing so that we can keep this head start in respect of death and serious injury on the roads that COVID's given us. And also welcome, we're talking about change, I'd also welcome the opportunity to work closer with NZTA and other partners going forward to look at how we can all collectively consult on ways to make the roading system better. Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector.
Chair, can I just ask one question of clarification of Brent, if I may?
Yeah, I can't see who's asking the question.
It's Tembe here.
Oh, Tembe, Your Worship, go for it.
Hey, Brent, sorry, did you say, or did I mishear you, that we, being the Bay of Plenty, last year represented 48% of the New Zealand national road toll?
Yeah, that's right. The Bay of Plenty area includes Taupo, and we had a series of crashes that took numbers of lives. We had 1 8 fatality, 2 5s, and about 2 or 3 3s, and that whilst there's single crashes, the road deaths are measured in numbers killed, not crashes. So last year we ended up 75 dead on Bay of Plenty roads over the year, which was just an absolutely extraordinary number.
Wow.
I hope to never see it again.
Yeah, okay. I thought I misheard you actually, so thanks for that clarification. That is horrific. Thank you, Chair.
I think the big one was the bus, as I recall, in the Mamakus that we dealt with in Rotorua, as you'll recall, the Chinese tourists. Final speaker, Her Worship, the Mayor of Opotiki. Floor is yours.
Kia ora, thank you. I thought you'd left me out.
No. The lucky last.
Thank you very much. I just want to say about 3 things. First off, with our Safe Network program, it's really good to see the Wainui Road to Opotiki project progressing. That's been really good with work between Whakatane, Opotiki districts, and of course NZTA. That's great. But we're still awaiting confirmation on speed management for the State Highway 35 speed review. And also we have been asking for some time, which relates to Brent's comments around accidents. We're still looking for State Highway 2 Waitahi Bluff inclusion. We had asked for reduced speeds on either side of our town, and that still hasn't been. We keep getting, yes, we do this and this, but nothing has happened. And I suppose it's really good that there hasn't been so much traffic going around over the last 2 or 3 months. But we would really like a bit more work done there. We've received correspondence from Ross back in October from NZTA, expecting to arrange a workshop with our council. And we would like to have some more work there. So the other thing, there's 2 other things. One is we really thank the government for our opportunity to get the stimulus packages going, because it's helped us get some of our lesser projects onto the regional radar. And I have to say, I actually found and I did read everybody's regional asks. That was actually really interesting to see what different councils were focusing on as a background for Bay of Plenty needs and wants. That was really good. We are progressing actually quite well on work for the harbour transformation project, especially around the roading aspects of that, and also our rock. So those have been great for us. We've had to put in COVID-19 safety plans and protocols for both staff and our contractors. And as you may know, we do have some road restraints, our community safety zones down on State Highway 35. And we will be reviewing that tomorrow afternoon with Te Whanau Apanui. Thanks for the opportunity for the update.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Before I close the meeting, just a reminder that at 1 o'clock today we have the Zoom with the Minister. We've had it clarified, and they've made it very clear in his office that the Minister and his office will be owning that meeting. So we're very much in their hands. So I look forward to seeing you all back at 1 o'clock. But finally, just to thank you to all you mayors and councillors and the advisors and our staff in particular. Some outstanding papers were presented today, I felt. And to NZTA, who are a very key member of this committee, thank you one and all, and especially thanks to the public, anyone who's lasted the duration of this, and also thanks to the press and the media representatives who have also indicated that they've been on throughout. So have a great day, everyone, and we will sign off. Thank you so much, and see you at 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Bye.
Good.